Hello and welcome to PSY 300 Movies and Madness in the fall of 2021 at the University of Mount Union. In this video, I'm going to take you on a tour through the D2L page and go over the syllabus in detail. And in addition, I'll be taking you over to the perusal platform, which is where I will be having you engage with your readings for this class. When you first log on to the D2L page, you're going to see this landing spot, and I'm going to switch to the student view, so the web page will look pretty much like it does when you log on as a student. So the D2L page, like most D2L pages for your courses at Mount Union, has some introductory information for you, including where we're meeting. Your class is from 1:45 to 2:50, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, in TNH 201 on the second floor of Tarleton and Hood. My office is 206. My phone number is listed here, my email as well, and my office hours. I will have in-person office hours in my office, 12:30 to 1:30 Mondays and Fridays, and 10:30 to 11:30 Tuesdays. You can also book either an in-person or online meeting with me through my bookings page if those scheduled office hours don't work with your schedule. So you can just click that page and it will give you the option for either a Teams meeting, a Microsoft Teams meeting, or an in-person meeting at your convenience. I'm going to toggle back to the syllabus now for a bit and go over the basics. So you can refer back to this if you need to, but mostly you'll just be printing out or looking at your syllabus online to remind yourself of the things that I'm going to go over here today. As I already said, you know the class time and location. I have included here, and I always debate whether or not to do this, I've included my cell phone number, and I do use the usual boundaries on my cell phone. I don't answer calls from people that I don't know. So if you have a genuine emergency and need to reach me and I'm not in my office, or obviously you should try email first. But if you have a genuine emergency and you need to reach me, you can call and leave a message on my voicemail. You can send a text. Make sure that if you text me, you tell me your name and the class that you're taking. And, use your judgment, but it really should be a real emergency for you to need to contact me on my personal cell phone. I've already gone over my office hours. A little bit about what this class is. And, the title is a total teaser, and it is honest. We'll watch movies and we will talk about the concept of madness and the way in which film media primarily, but also television and other forms of media present people with mental illnesses, the way psychological disorders are presented, the way people who provide treatment for mental illness are presented in feature films is the major topic of this course. I'm a social psychologist, and one of the major areas of study for me is attitudes, and my major interest has been in complicated social attitudes like stigma and discrimination. People with mental illnesses have always faced stigmatization and marginalization, prejudice and discrimination in their lives, and you can see that very profoundly when you start paying attention in the ways in which people with mental illnesses of various kinds are presented in the media. So that's what we're going to be looking at in this class. You will get some basic information about psychological disorders, about their treatment, about the mental health system. This is not a replacement for, say, a course in clinical psychology or an abnormal psychology course. That's not the purpose, and that's not the kind of information you're going to be getting. What you will be getting is practical, usable information that if you or someone you care for has received a diagnosis with a mental illness, the kind of information that you could actually put to good use. So what you'll be doing is, as the course purpose says, is since most of us, and we have data to support this, most of us learn about mental illness, about psychological disorders from movies and television. The estimates are between 70 and 80% of people say that that's where they get most of their information. You should understand that most of that information in the media is inaccurate and based on stereotypes. So, your first challenge is going to be to critically interrogate those images. The argument that I'm going to make is that it's not the media that causes stigma and prejudice and discrimination against people with mental illness. The media, though, exacerbates the problem and makes it even more difficult for us to be able to move that needle and reduce the stigma. The goals in this class, as I've articulated them in the course learning goals, I do want you to learn how to critically evaluate these depictions of people who experience various psychological disorders in films. I also want you to learn to evaluate depictions of mental health professionals and the various people who provide treatments for psychological disorders. I want you to be able to show that you understand with some nuance and some depth the global impact of these inaccurate negative images and how this can impact us as a whole culture. Fourth, I want you to be able to become more conversant, more capable of finding out basic information about psychological disorders. I've had students over the years in this class say, why don't they teach this stuff in high school? Why aren't we learning about these basic kinds of information when we're much younger? Why am I just learning this now? And my answer is, well, that's a really good question. So I want to model for you how to find that basic information, how to talk about it with each other. I want you to be able to look at the issue of stigma from multiple disciplinary perspectives. One of the best things about this class for me is that I get to have contact with students who are outside of the psychology majors that we offer. I get students from every discipline across the campus, and those intersections are really valuable for us. Finally, the sixth goal is for you to be able to take what you're learning and have an impact, put that into practice by increasing awareness, by fighting back against stigma in the real world. I will leave you to read about connections to departmental learning goals on your own. Technology requirements, and I will say that and I hesitate to speak these words out loud, if the world goes bad again and we end up online, I may have to publish an addendum, but generally speaking, your technology requirements are the same as for any other class on campus. You need a good working computer. You need the ability to be on the internet and access to D2L. Now, there is a statement in here about Respondus lockdown. We will not be using that in this class. Access to Microsoft Teams, Virtual Classroom, Zoom. Right now, that is not required for this class. If we have to go remote, or if you have to go remote as an individual, you will need to be able to do those things. So you should plan ahead, make sure that your computer or some other computer that you can access has built into it the ability for you to engage in virtual meetings. You do need to have reliable internet access. If you are working remotely for even a short period of time, being out of touch with your class and unable to access the internet is a problem. So make sure that you can get that. Now, course materials. There's a textbook that I use. It's a short paperback text. It's woefully out of date at this point, but the arguments made in the text are extraordinarily useful. You don't have to purchase it. The wall text is available through the university library, and I will be posting excerpts from the book in a platform called Perusal that I'll talk about more here in a minute. So you don't need to acquire the wall text. If you want to read it in its entirety, you can take it. You can check out the ebook through the University of Mount Union Library. If you want to purchase it, it's not a very expensive text. I think it's like $9.99 in Kindle form or in other ebook platforms. I'm not sure what the university store is selling it for. There are a couple of other books in the Mount Union ebook library that you might find useful for projects in this class. The Black and Grant DSM-5 guidebook can be very helpful, as can the Ventura casebook for the DSM-5. Now, I did note here additional readings will be posted on D2L. I should clarify that. All of your additional readings, the assignments, will be listed on D2L and in this syllabus. Where they're actually posted is on Perusal. So I really should update this and clarify that. Finally, another course resource that you will need to read a first-person narrative account of a person living with mental illness. The set of books that are required for this, basically you're choosing one book. I have one set of physical copies of these books in my office. You can check a book out if you prefer to read a physical copy. There should be some still in the library stacks, but people keep walking off with them. I have gotten permission from the Annenberg Public Policy Center, which was the producer of these wonderful books. I have gotten permission from them to post the PDF copies of each of the books on the D2L site. You can also download any of them, plus a number of other books that they have curated from the Annenberg Public Policy Center website. And I've included the link here. For your purposes in this class, the copies of the Adolescent Mental Health Initiative book series, the full copies of the books are posted on D2L for you to use. So the breakdown of course assignments, and I'll give you a little more detail on each of these. You're going to write an essay after you read your chosen first-person narrative book. You're going to receive an email this week which will contain the name of a DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual disorder, a psychological disorder, and the name of a film in it. That will be your assigned disorder, and why I'm attaching a film to it, I'll talk about that more in a minute. And then, your job is going to be to research that disorder and write up a very short write-up about it. Each time we watch a film in this class, you're going to complete some reflection questions through D2L. You will be selecting a film that we do not watch in class, to do your own film analysis. You will also be doing a Stigma Buster project where you are taking what you're learning in the class and designing your own kind of public education project. And then finally, your grade will be in part based on reading engagement, which means you're reading and communicating with your classmates about what you're reading. Finally, there's attendance. You'll get some points for that, for coming to class. Now, a little bit more about each of these elements. The first person narrative, as I mentioned before, you're required to select a book from a set of first person accounts of people who live with a variety of types of mental illnesses. There is an assignment sheet for this. There's a separate module for the first person narrative assignment. So before you do anything else, you need to read the assignment sheet. This essay that you write, you will receive feedback from me on the essay. You can revise the paper, that essay one time for a higher grade after you receive feedback. For the film analysis essay assignment, you're writing a critical analysis of a film that you select. I post a excerpt from a chapter written by Corrigan describing the type of essay. There's also a video lecture. If you're interested in looking at it now, you can review that video describing the assignment. I'll also be talking about it in our actual class, so to make sure that you understand what you're doing. You are expected in all of the papers that you write for me to use APA style. When we go back to the D2L page, I'll show you some resources that I've posted for you. For the Stigma Buster project, just like with the other two essays that I've already talked about, there is a separate module on D2L for the Stigma Buster project. With this project, you're going to be designing your own public education project. You can either do these projects alone or in groups. Regardless of whether you're doing it on your own or with a group of people, you do need to write your own reflection essay. As with every other assignment in this class, there's an assignment sheet. It's posted in the Stigma Buster module on D2L. For each film, you're going to be responding to some reflection questions as you watch and think about what you're seeing. The reflection questions are posted in the quizzes space on D2L, and there are links within each module for you to go to those quiz spaces to basically input your responses to the reflection questions. As I mentioned before, you will receive this week, probably after class, on the first day of class, you'll be sent an email with the name of a psychological disorder and an associated film. Your job will be to do some background research on that disorder that you're going to then write up and present in class. After you're done with your presentation in class, which will be there's usually the flow of things is 2 film days and 2 lecture days. Once a film is watched, let's say you have a card for selective mutism, and we've just watched One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. If your card is selective mutism, you need to be ready on the 2 lecture days after we watch Cuckoo's Nest. And this will all start to make sense once I lay that all out and you have a schedule. On perusal, if you've never experienced perusal, it will seem like a foreign environment at first, but I think, I've used it for several years, and students seem to adjust to it very quickly. In each module, there are assigned readings from the wall text. There are also supporting articles that go with it. The excerpts from the wall text that I'm including are very short. I've also curated a set of readings to go with each of our films. and they're set up in module by module on the Perusal site. Perusal is a system that basically makes reading and other kinds of class activities social. So as you read, you make comments. Perusal calls them annotations. And on each of the reading assignments within a module, you need to make a minimum of 3 annotations, which are basically comments, questions, responses, reactions, and so on. There is a section at the end of the syllabus for explaining how Perusal works, so you should make sure that you read that carefully so that you understand how grading in Perusal works. I do make every effort to grade persistently and consistently. I do a lot of grading in line, so you turn in papers, I try and grade the entire class and then post the grades. I do tend to do kind of a global update of grades, including attendance, on a weekly basis. With Perusal, I have to manually enter the grades from the Perusal site into the D2L site, and that will be updated on a weekly basis. This is the grading scale that we all use in the Department of Psychology, so it should be pretty familiar to you. In terms of communication, your first way of communicating with me reliably is email, or stopping by my office and talking to me when we're in class. After that, using phone calls. Generally, I try to reply to emails as soon as I see them, although I am a genuine older person. I go to bed and I sleep. I don't respond to emails or anything else in the middle of the night, but I do tend to respond to email very quickly. If for some reason it gets to be 48 hours and I haven't gotten back to you, then feel free to nag. Otherwise, be a little bit patient. The remainder, these statements are pretty typical of syllabi about class conduct and so on. The schedule, I try to color code things to help. There is one notation on the first week of class, one thing that's kind of out of line with normal. I will be in class on Monday and Wednesday. Friday, I already have to cancel class, but I have a really good reason. My kid is getting married at my mother's house near Columbus. So Friday is the rehearsal and the rehearsal dinner. Saturday is the wedding. I'll probably still be exhausted on Monday. So that's why it says here, no class, my kid's getting married tomorrow. So you get Friday off. You do have reading due on Perusal reading due on Sunday evening. Now, it's not that I'm saying you have class on Sunday. That's not the case. You have all week, the first week, to do this reading. It's just that your annotations need to be posted by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday night. All right. Now, the way I have organized the modules, they are by modules, by content module. With the way the semester rolls out, I tend to do 2 film days, 2 discussion days, 2 film days, 2 discussion days. So having modules correspond to weeks didn't exactly work perfectly. So I have laid things out by module. So module is off to the left, and then I give you the dates that are included. In week 1 I'll be laying out the basic model that we'll be following in this class, and the reading supports that. Then in module 2, we will watch our first film. So on Monday and Wednesday, week 2, we'll be watching One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And then we will be having our first discussion day on Friday the 3rd. Your reading on perusal is due on Sunday the 5th. We have no classes on that Monday the 6th. So our second discussion day for Cuckoo's Nest will be on the 8th of September. So that's module 2. You'll kind of get into the flow of this as we go forward. One of your first decisions that you have to make in the class is on Monday of the second week. You need to pick out which first-person narrative book you want to read, and you just need to notify me. It's not a graded assignment, but I want to know which book you've chosen by August 30th, 11:59 p.m. All right. The first-person narrative essay, and I know I jump on this pretty early, but I want you, these books can be really impactful. So there's a reason why I want you to do this very early in the semester, before you get too many movies under your belt, too much information in your head. I want you to read these first-person stories. So your first-person narrative essay is due on Friday, the 10th of September. And notice how all deadlines, it's before midnight on the day when something is due. I missed noting the reflection questions. Reflection questions are always due on the class day after we've viewed the film. So we watch Cuckoo's Nest on Monday and Wednesday in class. By Friday, 11:59 p.m., your reflection questions are due in the quiz space on D2L. So that's kind of how things lay out here. You've got movie, discussion, reading due on Sundays, reflection questions due on the class day after the film was screened. And that's how that kind of rolls out. Now, in purple are items on the schedule that are related to the Stigma Buster assignment. We're going to have a conversation on Wednesday the 29th of September about the Stigma Buster project to get you moving, get you thinking about that project. You do have a couple of days there, you know, a solid chunk of days there to come up with an idea and get some preliminary references together. That's due on Friday the 8th of October. And what I do encourage you to set up meetings with me, talk through your ideas and what you're thinking about, because I can help you a great deal with planning. On October 22nd, I'll be having an in-class conversation about the film analysis paper, so that you have a really solid understanding of how that assignment should play out. You'll have several days then after that lecture presentation to come up with the name of the film that you want to watch and some preliminary references that you're going to use to write your paper. Your first draft of your film analysis essay is due mid-November, November 19th to be specific. Your Stigma Buster project, you know, have you talk about that, think about it much earlier in the semester. It has to be finished essentially by Thanksgiving, because your Stigma Buster essay is due on December 3rd. And then we do, on the last day of class, everybody gets to present their Stigma Buster project in class. This final deadline for all revisions of papers that you write for me, that's on the date and time when you would have had a final if you had a final in this class. The next part of the syllabus is a set of university policies and other resources for you. I'll leave you to read those on your own. And then you will need to read this very carefully. This is an explanation of how the perusal platform works for socially engaged reading. It's an explanation of how scoring works, how your comments, your annotations are going to be evaluated by the system. So, note here in particular this idea that effective annotations deeply engage points in the reading, stimulate discussion, offer informative questions and comments, and help others by addressing their questions or confusions. So your job when you're reading is you're not looking for, bullet point answers to questions. You're not reading in the way you would read to study for a multiple choice test. You're reading to talk to each other, to ask questions. And I engage in these discussions too. When you ask questions, I respond to them. And when you raise insightful points, interesting points, I respond and am engaged right with you. So make sure that you read this description of how perusal works and read it carefully. You don't need to worry about the access code part of this. That's for if we were working within D2L to have access to your text within D2L. We're not doing that, so you can ignore that portion of it. Now I'm going to toggle back to the D2L page where you'll be spending most of your time when you're on D2L is on the content browser. So where you're going to start when you're in the table of contents, you start with course information, and the first place you can go is the welcome page. After I'm done recording this video, I will be posting this welcome video to the welcome page. It's just a little more information about who I am, what kind of research interests I have, and things like that. You have the course time and location, my office hours. There's also a link to my bookings page where you can book either an in-person or online appointment with me. And again, I encourage you to do this. I have offered this class in the past fully online. So there is an existing YouTube playlist of lectures from the fall of 2020 that you can, you're more than welcome to watch. There won't be lectures for every film that we watch. There are a couple of films that I did not use that semester. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Canvas are two of those that I do not have lectures for. But many of the others, there are lectures there. There are also supplemental videos, so feel free to access that playlist for times when you just may be interested in a different perspective, or if you miss class and that video happens to be available to you. If you haven't discovered this button over here on D2L, it can be extremely useful. Basically, it's a navigation tool. In this first module, this course information module, there are sub-modules that describe much of what's also in the syllabus. So you've got the learning goals that I already went over in the syllabus and the connections to departmental goals. The syllabus is posted on the syllabus page, so you can download and print the PDF or download and save the PDF, or you can just view the syllabus here online. There's a page, and I will warn you, I will update this at times where, sorry, I skipped one. This is something I will need to correct. I apologize. There should be an additional piece of information here on course resources that is basically a reference list. I need to add that. That's what was tripping me up. There should have been a reference list. I'll fix that. Apologies. All right. For perusal access, as I said, in the syllabus, there's a long description of how perusal works. This is a short version of that. Make sure that you read this information about how perusal works. When you first go to the perusal site, and I'll be taking you there here in a minute, you will need to enter this code right here for access to this class. You will need to sign up for an account. There is no fee for joining perusal or anything like that, and there is no fee for access to the readings that I have posted there for this particular class. I mentioned earlier that when you write papers for me in this class, you will need to use APA style for your citations and references. So I've posted here some PDF documents that should give you basically all you need. There is a document here for reference examples, a reference guide, and a citation guide. And that should, if you have no familiarity with APA style or you have limited familiarity, these documents should help you to know how to cite your sources in text and how to build a reference page. The remaining sub-modules here are the kinds of information that you can find in the syllabus and also are, the same kinds of information you find in pretty much all of the D2L pages for courses across the campus. The next module that you'll find on D2L is the first person narrative module. It gives you an overview of the assignment, a link to the assignment sheet, which describes exactly what you need to do in the assignment. These are links to each of the first person narrative books that you have to choose from. So you've got an account of a person with an eating disorder, a person with social anxiety disorder, a person with depression, a person with bipolar disorder, a person with OCD, a person with substance abuse addiction, a person with suicidal depression, and a person with schizophrenia. So you're to choose one of those books and write an essay following the guidelines on the assignment sheet in response to it. With each of these assignment modules, there will be a task list. So you select your book, you tell me which book by August 30th. You read your book, you write your essay, you turn in your essay by September 10th. The next module is the disorder card module. As I mentioned, on the first day of class, you'll be getting an email, and that email will have in it the name of a disorder and the name of a film. There is an assignment sheet. You need to read the assignment sheet and do exactly what it says in order to meet all of the criteria for the assignment. The goals for this assignment is for you to show that you have the ability to find basic and diagnostic and treatment information about a psychological disorder. You have to show that it is accurate, that it's reliable, that it's useful, that it comes from reputable sources. You need to be able to describe the DSM-5 criteria for the disorder. You need to be able to identify how common these disorders are. You need to be able to talk about commonly understood treatment approaches for your disorder, and you need to be able to communicate to your peers what you've learned, because one of the key elements of this assignment is that you be able to share with the class your information about this disorder that you've been assigned. Now typically we do this in class, so during the discussion days after the film you've been assigned, you're going to speak in class, and nothing formal. You're not going to do a PowerPoint or anything like that, but in class you're going to tell the class what you learned about your disorder so that you share your experience with them. When I've taught the class online, I've had to have students video record their presentation and share it in a discussion forum. Just like with the first-person narrative assignment, you have a task list with corresponding information about where to turn things in. Stigma Buster module, have an overview of the assignment, the purposes of the assignment, the learning goals. I'm going to go through this without much detail because I will have an entire class devoted to going over the project. You can kind of peruse some of the ideas, the example projects that people have done before, and there is a pretty extensive task list for that. If you're interested in getting a head start, you can watch the video lecture that I recorded for 2020 for the Stigma Buster project. For the film analysis essay, and again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this in this video because I do devote an entire class period to talking about it. I give you an overview here of the assignment, the learning goals, and again the tasks. If you want to get a head start thinking about the film analysis assignment, if you have a film that you're tossing around in your head already, you can feel free to watch the video lecture that I created in the fall of 2020 for this assignment if you'd like.